Well, welcome back to Home Theater United. I'm Sam Posten, and tonight I have three of our favorite guests. John Rice, you want to say hi?
Hey, everybody.
Back again is the number one visitor is Todd Erwin.
Hello.
And back again is Josh Steinberg. So kicking things
Thanks,
off. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
It's okay. Thanks for having me.
I'm a professional, I swear, and I haven't been drinking. I'm sorry about that, Josh. So,
No worries.
So, in the meantime, one thing I wanted to kick off, and this may be a surprise to him, is Todd has started his own podcast. Todd, you want to tell us a little bit about it and how that's going?
Just I guess 4 days ago, I launched my streaming news and views YouTube channel, and I have 8 subscribers already after 4 days.
Hey. All right, nice.
Yay!
How many?
And they're not even very good videos, in my opinion. But,
no,
I
watched
dry. They're very, very dry. But my next couple episodes are going to be a lot more, I promise.
Todd, we're our own worst critics, and I watched the first one, and it's like, the way I look at it, Todd, is it's like the superheroes. You got to start off with the origin story, and I think you've gotten that. You got it under your feet, and you made the double leap to do video right away. So you have my extreme respect for that.
Oh, well, thank you. With my next couple episodes, you'll see why I wanted to go with video instead of just audio.
And so have the police shown up, Todd?
The what? The police?
The police. Yeah, the podcast police.
No.
No podcast police? Well, then you must be doing something right. Now, we'll put in the show notes the link to the podcast police. And so they show up when guys who shouldn't have a podcast start one up for no apparent reason. You must be doing good work.
I guess so.
Well, tonight's episode was suggested by one of our attendees, and I'll let him say about it, but it's going to be on underappreciated gems of movies, things that we like, that we think deserve more attention and more acclaim and deserve a bigger audience. So who came up with this one?
That was me.
Yeah, John. So you've brought a number of great ideas to the podcast, so I continue to thank you for that.
You just accept them.
No,
it's not what I'm used to.
No. I think I've immediately said yes on pretty much all of the great suggestions that Home Theater Forum members have suggested, and we roll with it, man. It's I tell you what, I took 9 months off here, and it's not easy to come up with new topics each time, and I think when we do, we've come up with things that are unique and aren't what every, home theater and movie review type site is doing. So I think we're on a good track here. So
well, and my motivation is a lot of the movies I watch don't get much cover.
Yeah.
And so I just there's so many movies I'd like to talk about. And even though people on Home Theater Forum probably don't realize, because I pretty much only participate in the hardware areas, but my motivation in it is movies and music. That's what brought me to audio, and that's why I want good audio and video is for the movies and music.
Yeah, and I definitely can appreciate that. And for somebody like me who was never intended to be a podcast creator, or a host, or anything like that, I always felt like I had things to say and didn't really have an outlet for it. And when Brian invited me to be a co-host, I kind of ran with it. I always felt like, I can do this. I can talk about movies all day long. Talk about good movies, bad movies, hidden gems. And, we can kind of riff on that. Maybe another show is bad movies that we love and what we love about them that, other people just don't get.
Well, I think that's one of the major things. Like, there can be objectively just incredibly well-made movies that just leave you completely flat.
Oh, yeah.
And other ones that are, I call them like ambitious failures or something. I like an ambitious failure over a just sort of perfectly, completely, finely crafted movie pretty much any time.
So what was that Dudley Moore movie that was like, had the enormous budget that fell flat? Does anybody remember the name of that one?
Dudley Moore?
Yeah. Oh, we're going to have to look that up. It was some kind of epic thing in the desert. We'll figure it out. But yeah, just
think you're thinking
You talking about Ishtar?
Ishtar. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's who is that? Warren Beatty and
Oh, it's not
um,
Dudley Moore.
not Dudley Moore. It's
Dustin Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman. I knew it was
Thank
a
you.
short guy. Well, I hope both actors can forgive me. Well, all right. Anyway, we're on a great track here tonight. We've got 4 participants with 3 movies each. And John, since it was your topic, why don't you start with your first movie?
Are we doing the movies you wouldn't believe we haven't seen?
Oh yeah, let's do that first. John actually had a second great idea, and that was for us to jump in with movies that nobody's going to believe we haven't seen. And if you guys remember when we last had Todd Rice on, he was incredibly upset. I mean, almost to physical violence that I hadn't seen Casino Royale. And I've got another choice tonight, so don't freak out. It's almost as bad as that. And every time I see Todd, it's like, have you seen Casino Royale yet? And it's like, nope, been busy with my parents. And
Which one, the original or the?
I haven't
the,
seen either.
Daniel Craig. You
No,
haven't seen
either of them,
Okay.
John. But he is incensed that I haven't seen the Daniel Craig one, and it gets worse because I've seen all of the other Daniel Craig Bond movies, and I love them and haven't seen the original. So Todd is right. I'm a terrible person for not having seen Casino Royale, and I will fix it. I have the Bond 50 set and the 49 set and probably the 48 before that.
Well, and that one kind of sets up a major.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I'm remembering, it kind of sets up a major
Sure.
plot line that goes through the entire series,
Oh, yeah.
and especially in No Time to Die. It's a huge plot element. In
Oh,
it.
of course. And, I just kind of rolled with it when I caught the second one. I was like, it'll be fine. It's Bond. They're all standalone. And no. And so I did a little bit of Google and figured it. Yeah, he's right. I mean, I got no excuse. So what's yours, John? We'll start there.
Oh, the one that nobody will believe. It's Titanic.
No, come on.
I have never seen Titanic.
All right. Todd and Josh, do you believe this?
Sure, why not?
I mean, it's
only
the highest
third,
grossing or
second or third
Yeah.
highest grossing movie of all time.
Well, I guess there's a reason it's not the #1 grossing movie of all
Right.
time, John. You better get on that.
Yeah, I better.
John, are
It'll
you?
it'll make speakers sound good.
Yeah, and there's no time like the present, right? Who just did our Titanic review? Was it Neil for the new
Yeah,
UHD?
Neil said it
Yeah,
looks fantastic.
Yeah, and so let's get on that, John.
I will probably pick up the 4K.
All right, Josh, we haven't heard much from you lately, so why don't you tell us yours?
All right, well, I'm ready for the ration of shit that's coming my way, but I have never seen the Goonies.
Hang on a second.
You son of a bitch.
That is unacceptable, Josh.
Well, I promised it would live up to it.
So it was not a part of your childhood, and you haven't felt compelled to buy every single re-release the way that those that are my generation.
I guess not. And the thing is, it's a fluke that I did because I had a very movie-oriented upbringing. We did movie night at my house. Every Friday when I was a little kid, we'd either go to the movies or rent something from the video store. So I genuinely have no idea how it escaped me. But I didn't even know it was a thing for the longest time. Like, it just somehow completely passed me by.
All right. Well, before Todd tells us his, I'm going to make a challenge / demand that before any of us get back on the next Home Theater United, that we all fix these tragic decisions. Is everybody agreed?
Fine.
I'll think about it.
All right. Todd, yes or no?
I'll order it. I'll order it right now.
All right. Don't.
Are you going to babysit so that I have 2 hours to watch it?
Well, I mean, there's plenty of educational material in Titanic for your children to. Yeah. No. What do you think, Todd? You in for the challenge? We haven't heard yours yet.
Well, the movie that I chose, I don't know. I'll have to try to find time for it.
Which is?
The Godfather. Actually, any of the Godfather movies.
You haven't seen any of the Godfathers, the greatest cinematic
I have-
achievement of our generation or any before?
And And you guys are giving me grief about Titanic?
You know, I think for The Godfather, that actually it's a really unique position because for years, Coppola was never happy with how the third one came out.
Yeah,
The studio
well-
made him rush to hit a release date, so it came out in theaters one way, and then they gave him more time to tinker with it home video, but not enough time. And then they had like some weird restrictions on you have to do this and you do that. And then like 2 or 3 years ago, they were finally like, fuck it, man, whatever you want to do with it, just go and do it.
Well,
And I watched it, reviewed it, and it's by far a better version of the film than any of the ones that came before. And it sort of makes sense what he was trying to do with it, in that he wasn't trying to make The Godfather Part 3, but that he was trying to make like a little epilogue, checking in on like, what would it be like, you know, be an old person and have everything that we had seen happen in these earlier movies be something sitting on your shoulders and your conscience all your life. So if you ever decide to go down that rabbit hole, Todd, you have this really unique opportunity to kind of see the version of the final film, the final version of it, without having to see like the rough drafts that didn't work for a lot of audiences. So you might have a completely different perspective on that than the general status quo.
Well, challenge accepted or no, Todd?
It's not a challenge.
I've tried to watch The Godfather several times,
Mhm.
and I have fallen asleep every single time. So
Have you seen Once Upon a Time in America?
haven't seen that either.
Oh, man, something's wrong.
I think we might have to take your credit card away, Todd. Not your credit, but your critic.
If The Godfather put Once Upon a Time in America is going to put you into a freaking coma.
Yeah.
That's amazing because it's 4 hours long, and I put it on, and it's over. That is the type of movie that 4 hours I don't even move.
Well, that's how you're going to feel about Titanic, John.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, huh?
I'm sure it's fine, but I really doubt it's Once Upon a Time in America.
Well,
I mean that's that movie.
Well,
It's Once Upon a Time on our way to it.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've seen all of Once Upon a Time in America. To check, who leads that?
De Niro, James Woods.
That's not Palminteri, is it?
Sorry?
Chaz Palminteri, is he?
I don't think so. I mean, if he is,
I think you're thinking Bronx Tale.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna have to watch that too, Todd. I'll take the pledge with you on that because, to be honest with you, none of that my selection is nowhere in the lofty realms of the films nominated so far. Even The Goonies, although it's kind of close to that, I have not seen either of the Addams Families.
Neither have I.
Todd, Josh, have you seen the Addams Families?
Yeah, I think
I have.
I think they're fun for what they are. I think Barry Sonnenfeld in the late 80s and early 90s like really kind of was shaping like what the pop culture version of subversive comedy between that and Get Shorty and stuff. So I think it's of a time, and I think entertaining if you like the vernacular of that time. If 90s comedies never made you laugh, I don't know if it's going to do it for you.
I mean, that's like my entire 30s. So yeah, 20s. Yeah. So yeah, probably should fit. All right. Well, that brings us.
So Sam,
Yeah.
I did pull up Once Upon a Time in America up
Yeah.
on IMDb.
Yep.
Sergio Leone directed.
Right.
And then you got De Niro, James Woods, Treat Williams, Burt Young, Tuesday Weld, Joe Pesci, Danny Aiello.
Oh, Aiello, who
Forsythe.
was who I was thinking, not Palminteri.
And I'll tell you what, Jennifer Connelly's first role, she's, I don't know, 12 or something like that. And I tell you, if you didn't love Jennifer Connelly already, you will after you see this.
Okay. Well, she was just in the latest Top Gun. Was that her?
Yes.
Yeah. So I didn't really get on the Jennifer Connelly bandwagon early, but I thought she was terrific.
Well, this was her first role, and she almost steals the movie away from. She's not on the screen simultaneously with De Niro. The movie covers maybe 60 years, so this is during their adolescence, kind of early adolescence.
I'm definitely on board for that. And I wanted to mention, I should have mentioned that before we got started with the show. You guys all sound great tonight. I don't know whether you've upgraded rooms or microphones, but even you, Todd, where I know that you've worked hard on it. Everybody sounds terrific tonight to me.
Well, I think I've got the same setup I had last time. So,
All right.
I bought a house. It's my first time being a homeowner, so the iPad is the same, but I guess the risks are different.
Okay. Well, you should all start a podcast then. Just don't
All
compete
right.
with me and Todd.
I'm sure my wife would be very happy for me talking to strangers on the internet and giving her a break for a couple of hours.
Nice. Okay. All right. So I am going to shake the order up a little bit. Todd, why don't you tell us your first hidden gem?
Okay. Two of mine are kind of controversial, I think.
Okay.
But I'm gonna start off with Solo: A Star Wars.
All right. Now, why don't you tell us why you love it, and we'll tell you why you're wrong.
Oh, I don't exactly love it, but I think it got a bad rap. I think it's a better movie than people make it out to be. I think a lot of people just didn't give it a chance. But I mean, I enjoyed it. I saw it in Orlando at the Disney Springs AMC in Dolby Cinema with my longtime friend George Jacoumis, who is an old filmmaking buddy of mine. He works over at Universal Studios, works on the line cues, and he enjoyed it as well. So we all had a great time, just having a kind of just putting our brain on hold and having fun with it.
do you think the string of directors and just sort of the pre-release, just all the bad press had a huge part in why people just assumed it wasn't good?
Well, it was the troubled production, I think, that had a lot to do with it, but it came on the heels of Last Jedi, which is the most polarizing Star Wars film of all time. And it also came out just 2 weeks after Avengers Infinity War.
Yeah, and it's hard to top Infinity. I mean, what do they call it? The greatest crossover in the history kind of deal. It really killed.
Yeah, it was number one for several weeks. And Disney was at that time. Disney was doing something really bizarre, which always kind of bothered me to some extent as to why some of their movies failed and some of their movies did really well. Is they were releasing movies too close together during that time. Happened to them before with Finding Dory, and then they released Spielberg's the BFG just like 2 weeks later. And Finding Dory was the surprise hit. It did a lot better than anyone had expected it to do. So parents were still taking their kids to see Finding Dory and skipping the BFG, which was a much better film in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, for what it's worth, I told you this. I'd only seen it once. I sat down and watched it last week, and you're right. It's a pretty good movie. I'm sure just sort of subconsciously, I didn't really give it a chance the first time I saw it, but I have just a couple small little gripes with it, but I think it's a good Star Wars movie.
I agree. I thought it was a pretty enjoyable night at the movies too. I think that the box office expectations and the fact that they essentially spent the cost of two movies to make one, is kind of, it puts the film in an unfair position because it's got to make money for things that it's not responsible in a way. And sort of the discourse became something completely separate than what was on screen, and it was fine. But I think that also part of the thing was that until that point, there had been a scarcity of Star Wars for so long that even when they were making Star Wars movies, whether it was the original trilogy, the prequel trilogy, you got one every 3 years and that was it. And I just think that on the Disney end of things, no one really stopped to think about that a Star Wars movie or cycle that comes out once in a generation will get everybody to buy in. But if it's a regular feature, then it's going to start behaving like any other sort of franchise, science fiction or fantasy kind of movie where it just, not everybody wants to put the work in or enjoys seeing that sort of thing regularly. I saw The Force Awakens with people that had never seen a Star Wars movie before and were never going to see a Star Wars movie again, but it was simply everybody was going to, so they went too. And if you release a Star Wars movie every year, that's great for Star Wars fans, but then you sort of realize that there's tiers. How many people are willing to pay to see this once a year? How many people to pay to see this, once every 5 years sort of thing? And it was just, it's like nobody thought of that. And I don't know how it's possible that was.
Yeah, Star Wars fatigue was a real thing, and it started happening on Disney Plus too, where they were putting out shows, every 6 months, and it was like, okay, Let's pace this a little. Who knew? Right?
I think Marvel has really been seeing how far that can get pushed.
Yeah,
You know,
and I don't think anything has measured up remotely close to what Endgame has. I mean, some of the movies have been fine, but are they building to something that's going to culminate in another Endgame? I can't imagine seeing an event movie like that again in my life. Can you?
I think yes, but I think it's also just not going to be what you expect it to be, because it's like it's always a moving target. So it's sort of, they started making like those Marvels movies for fans of the comics, but also trying to. Kevin Feige had been like a lower level production executive on the original X-Men movies at Fox, and he kind of had this idea of like, I know that there's more potential to all of this that they're not seeing, but they don't speak the language of comic books, so they don't know what they're missing. So it's sort of, I think we'll have another big event of some kind, but I think it's almost impossible to say what it is, because I mean, who would have said the Barbie movie was going to be the thing that everybody went and saw a year ago? Nobody would have guessed that. So I think we're always going to have these waves that draw everybody in, but I think when you try to get too clever about engineering them, it's if you have momentum, you can kind of play with it and build it, but I don't know that you can really blueprint it that well. It's like you can engineer the movies, but you can't engineer the audience behavior past a certain degree.
All right. With that, I want to take a vote. Does anybody disagree that Solo is a better movie than the reaction that it got?
it's definitely better.
Agreed.
Okay, Todd, you got a win there. Put one in your scoreboard.
Yay.
And to be fair, I don't think everybody's seen all of the other movies. I know I haven't. So, but for the ones that we have seen, let's try to keep a tally there. What you got first, Josh?
First, John had said that he'd been talking about this one too, and I actually had time to revisit it last night. So let's start with Sunshine. There are a few movies with that title, but I'm referring to the science fiction film directed by Danny Boyle, starring Cillian Murphy, which came out in 2007. It seemed kind of timely, given that Cillian Murphy made a whole lot of money this summer, a guy who made a bomb that might have saved the world, and this is a movie about Cillian Murphy as a guy who made a bomb that kind of could save the world. So.
Okay.
Typecasting.
So I can't remember if I've seen this, and I'm remiss in not having seen it before. Is this the one where it kind of tape records your memories and things like that, or is that something different?
No, that's something different. This is a movie about, it's set in the near future. I don't think they give an exact date. It takes place entirely aboard on this ship, and their mission is that our sun is dying.
Okay.
And they figured out that if they build a big enough nuclear bomb and ignite it in the middle of the sun, that might restart the sun, which would allow life on Earth and everywhere else, and or if there is life anywhere else in the solar system, to continue. So it was sort of a Hail Mary play for the safe of it. And it's a small enclosed movie with just a small cast, and it's about sort of, they're on their way there. It's been pretty uneventful so far. But the kind of thing hanging over their head was that they're the second mission attempting to do this, because the first ship that went out to do it kind of fell off radar when they got past Mercury, and they never heard from them. So they didn't know why that mission. And then as they're sort of on their way there, they sort of start picking up a signal from that old ship. So it becomes sort of this dilemma of continue on the mission to save life as we know it, or do we go and try to find out what happened on the other ship? Because either what happened to them could happen to us, or maybe they have something that will be useful for our mission. So it's just everything that kind of unfolds after that is a dilemma that's, that's sort of approached in as serious as a scientific context as a fictional movie of this type can.
Okay.
Josh, would you think it's fair to say that this movie just is not what anybody would expect it to be?
Absolutely not. And that's why I ended up, I saw a trailer for it and I didn't see it in theaters, which was rare for me for a Danny Boyle movie. And then I think I wound up renting it shortly after it came out on DVD. And it was sort of like, holy shit, how did I miss this? This is what I want movies to be. Like, this one was made for me. And how did it just escape me?
Okay, before you say anything further, John, Todd, have you seen this one?
No, I have not seen it.
Okay, so we've both got homework here. So tell us why you like it so much, John.
Oh, well, I've seen it twice, and I'm still really not sure I even understand it. to be honest.
Well, that's great. I mean, and so is it that open ended, or you're not familiar enough with the science?
Oh, it's not. No, it has nothing to do with science. Wouldn't you say, Josh? I mean, really, what the movie is about?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and it's funny you mention that because I mentioned I moved and I'm unpacking all of my stuff, and I just found the screenplay, published screenplay, that's got an introduction by Alex Garland, who wrote it. He now is a writer and director. He did Ex Machina and Annihilation and Men this past summer. So Alex Garland wrote it. Danny Boyle directed it. And the interesting thing is that in reading their prefaces to this published screenplay, I don't think either of them agrees what the movie's actually about. So there's sort of this unspoken tension, and I think neither of them are wrong in what they feel they put into it. It just kind of shows how a work of art can be more than one thing, or it can be saying two different things at the same time that sometimes might be contradictory and yet still true.
And honestly, anything Alex Garland is involved in is worth seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if this movie had come out after Ex Machina, or if it had come out sort of after Gravity and Interstellar kind of made realistic, plausible space travel, or at least semi-realistic, plausible space travel fun in pop culture, it would have had a much different reaction. But it kind of came out at a time when space travel on screen was dead. There hadn't been, Star Wars was over. There hadn't been a Star Trek movie or TV show for years. Like, it was just, there was sort of nothing that was playing in that sandbox, and I think it just sort of wasn't the right time for it.
Well, and I think, yes, it is tenuously it's a sci-fi setting, but it's a Danny Boyle movie. Danny Boyle is not going to do pirates in space. There's going to be something to it.
Right. And I mean, I think one of the if you look at the cast, I'm pulling up the box here. Like, if you look at the cast that's in this movie, besides Cillian Murphy, I mean, Chris Evans, Captain America, is one of them there. Michelle Yeoh, Benedict Wong. I mean, it's all the people that are in it are incredible performers, and their characters each sort of represent a different point of view on how do we approach, how do you make any decisions when you're on a mission that if it succeeds, life continues, and if it fails, life as we know it, is just done. I mean, so it's sort of the interpersonal relationships, the dilemmas, if we have to, should we make a left turn? Should we make a right turn? How do you make a decision in that context? How do you carry the weight of any of that? How do you go on a mission that can't fail, that could fail?
And I'd just like toss in, Mark Strong is also in that. He's probably one of those people who oh yeah, that guy, they don't know his name, but to me, he's really one of the more underrated actors around.
All right, is he one of the Life on the Street guys, or one of those police dramas? I swear I know that name from.
He has been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
it's always supporting roles. A lot of times he's kind of a heavy. He's British. It's Mark Strong. If you look him up, I mean, he must have been in 150 movies.
Okay,
he's got like one of those faces that, depending on, like, if you throw a hairpiece on him or if you throw a mustache on him, that it just he ends up looking completely different and completely different with just a little bit of stylistic. Just so he really, almost like a Gary Oldman, can do a lot of things. And so it's like you see him and he's one of those that you don't know how many things.
Cool. Before we move on, let me ask both of you guys this. Have either of you seen either version of Solaris? Would it be comparable?
I love both versions of Solaris, and I think if that's the kind of movie you like, that this is 100% belongs on that shelf.
Okay.
It may be a little bit more, there might be a little bit more of a coherent plot driving the narrative than that, but otherwise, it's definitely of a kind with Solaris.
I wondered if Solaris was the movie you were thinking of, Sam, that where it like plays your.
No.
Okay.
No. It was a near future on Earth for sure.
I think it sounds like a Black Mirror episode.
Maybe it also.
I do like both of Solaris. I actually probably kind of prefer the Soderbergh one.
I would agree.
If I was to take a choice,
that one just cuts, man. It's brutal.
Yeah.
Does Todd want to say anything? Josh and I are kind of monopolizing here.
Well, I mean, we haven't seen it, so I'm just trying to pick your brains. But Todd, if you get any questions, jump in here.
No real questions, but I mean, Mark Strong was in Shazam and what were those movies? I drew a blank. Oh well.
All right, if you think of it, we'll jump in.
He has 117
Okay.
film credits here, so he's been in a few things.
Okay, cool. All right, while we're having technical difficulties here, I'm going to jump in with my first one, which I thought would be a little bit more controversial on Home Theater Forum when I did the latest review, and it's The Mist. Todd and Josh, have either of you seen this one?
The Mist. Are we talking the Frank Darabont based on the Stephen King story?
Correct.
Yeah. I read the story long before I saw the movie, but yeah.
Okay, how about you, Todd?
I think I may have seen it, but I'm not 100%.
Oh, if you saw it, you'd remember the end. It's got one of the most controversial endings of any movie I've seen.
That's a great that's a great like in the vein of Night of the Living Dead, but with a budget kind of
Sure.
movie.
Yeah, and it's unusual for a King movie to I think that they really cut costs on it, but we're still able to capture, all the human elements and then kind of go practical effects and, do it relatively inexpensively but with a great cast. Todd, I'm assuming you've never read the novella that it's based on either.
No, I don't think I've read some Stephen King, but I don't think I read that one.
So again, not to give any spoilers away, but it is a brutal ending to a kind of bottle episode kind of thing where you put people together who have competing interests and put them in a bad situation and see how their true selves come out. What did you like about it, Josh?
Well, I think, like you said, that's just it, that it kind of puts a few people together. And I think for me, the Stephen King's kind of in my blood. It's my mom's favorite. So it was sort of inevitable that that's where my tastes were going to go. And I ended up during that recession we had in like 09, 10, I ended up getting caught up in that and being unemployed for a while. So I had plenty of time to catch up on my reading. So I basically read everything Stephen King had ever written in that year. And then I tried to go and see some of the movies to patch up that. And having seen all that in such close proximity, what I realized I like about Stephen King is when he tends to do more of his King stories like the novellas rather than the big sprawling epic novels, which, I mean, he's still fantastic.
Yep.
But he does the small spaces so well. And I think that of all the movies, those are the ones, whether they're based on novels or novellas, that end up doing the intimacy of a small space and a single interaction, that I think that's where sort of the tension and the horror is. And I think those have been the most successful adaptations. And certainly Frank Darabont, Shawshank Redemption. I mean, nobody, and The Green Mile, nobody adapts King better.
Yeah.
So I was surprised that it flew under the radar the way it did, or that it didn't do as well, because I think it does all of those things great. But I think, maybe that's why, because it shows sort of an ugly side of people, but in a way that you recognize why people are making the choices they're doing. And if you don't necessarily think you would do that, you know somebody that would.
Yeah.
And you recognize that it's somebody that you like would do something like that, and so it sort of puts you in this uncomfortable, you find that you're sitting in judgment of yourself in a way that maybe you didn't expect to. And I think maybe that makes it hard for.
Yeah, for me, it's two things. One, I don't have kids of my own, but like The Road, and I think The Road is very much of a piece with The Mist. I think both of them are, examples of what fathers would do to protect and keep their kids safe, or as safe as they can, I should say, in unthinkable circumstances. Nobody knows what they'll do until they're, put up against, the limit. And,
A hunt. I mean, and I think there must be a lot of people out there in this world that have had like the similar experience that I did, which is I became a parent, and then 6 months later, a pandemic got dropped on my doorstep. So it's like all of a sudden, you say things like, I would do anything for my kids, or there's no limit to what I would sacrifice. And like that was my welcome to parenthood. And it was sort of every notion I had about, and I didn't go and, chasing people with a baseball bat or beating anybody up with a stick or anything like that. But I mean, just the idea of what you're willing to sacrifice in your sense of self, what things you're willing to put up with in life, or willing to say, I'm going to take my needs or this part of me that I thought was irreplaceable and not transmutable, and stick that to the side because there's a mission, there's something that's more important than me. I mean, it really is indescribable. And I used to be annoyed when people would say things like that, because I'd be like, come on, that's not really possible. And then I wound up, being a parent, all of a sudden, oh, there are some you either experience it or you don't, but there's no other way to put it.
Yeah.
I hate that that's true, but it is.
and it's universal, it seems, right?
Yeah. But great movie, I think.
The other thing I'll say about it is, King is obviously well known for his horror, but people forget that he wrote Stand By Me, and he wrote Green Mile and stuff like that. He knows people, and applying the right amount of pressure against good and bad people, or normal people, to see what their true selves are. And if anybody's interested in that, the highest recommendation I can give is for them to read King's On Writing, because he is 100% real in that, and it's his voice, and he tells you why he made the decisions he did for a lot of his different books. And not that you can copy him, but you can learn from that. And as somebody who has always been kind of I wanted to be a storyteller as a kid. I wanted to be a filmmaker. I just found I didn't really have the talent for it, or the ability to put in those 10,000 hours. But it's the hero with 10,000 faces, and he puts it into just an absolutely brilliant amount of detail, so that somebody like me, who always wanted to do it but couldn't, you get the feeling like, well, really, if I applied myself, and I'm not gonna, but if I did, I could, forge my own path ahead there. Looks like we did lose John. Maybe he's resetting. So hopefully he comes
I will
back.
definitely second that recommendation on that. It's a phenomenal book for all the reasons you stated.
Cool. All right. Who wants to go next while we're waiting on John?
I'll go.
All right, jump in, Todd.
Okay, my second film, which is also probably a controversial choice, is the 2016 reboot of Ghostbusters, directed by Paul Feig.
Now this one's one I've got something to say on, and I have seen. How about you, Josh?
I have seen this one as well. I can also speak to this one a little bit.
Okay. So why don't you talk about the controversy first of all, Todd? Why you think the controversy doesn't stand up, and what else you'd like?
Well, I mean, I think, pulling up my review, I started my review basically, was never has a movie received so much hostility and hatred from the internet, particularly from those who've never seen.
Yeah, I mean, they were
than
against
this film.
They were against the idea of it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, it even prompted Joel Stein of Time magazine to write an article, How Trolls Are Ruining the Internet. And I mean, there were just some vicious things said about this film before it was even by people on Twitter and other social media platforms. And it's funny because even during some of the reshoots, they used some of those remarks in the movie. I forgot to write those down, but there's a couple scenes where they're reading comments about them. But I mean, yeah, I mean, and there's been a couple other movies that have kind of received the same kind of treatment. Captain Marvel and even the Marvels kind of comes to mind, where there's just this hatred that comes out. But we didn't see it with Barbie, which is just so bizarre.
It's a dude thing.
It's a dude thing, I think that, and most of these were people who are just, they felt threatened that a beloved franchise from their childhood was gender swapped.
Well, not only that, but this whole "you ruined my childhood" thing, this entitlement. I mean, that's just. I mean, the movie's not for you, dude. You go on, live your life, and enjoy what you had. This takes nothing away from it. I don't understand.
Right.
We've sort of been sucked into weird thing as like a culture that everybody has to offer an opinion on everything, and it's like we've lost the space to have sort of like, it's just not my thing. I don't need to have and I don't know exactly when that happened, but I don't think it's necessarily doing any of us any good that everybody has to have an opinion on everything all the time.
Yeah, and the bummer of it is that objectively, sorry, objectively, it's a fun movie.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily the target audience, although they've leveraged, the fandom of people like me. Go in with an open mind. It's not a bad movie in any sense.
No, I don't know if I should mention this, but what the hey, because I don't like to kind of trade off. But I have known Kate McKinnon since I was a kid. We went to school together, and I mean, we haven't really been close in many years, but like we used to watch movies together, and we used to do theater together, and like not just me and her, but a whole group of us theater geeks, and we'd watch movies like Ghostbusters, and we some of us had proton packs, and
Nice.
we all grew up like wanting to be a Ghostbuster, so it was like my friend from high school got to go and be a Ghostbuster. Like, how is that not the coolest thing ever? Like, I just, it's hard for me to look at it with any sort of cynicism or animosity or anything, because it's like, that's the dream when you play with toys as a kid and are doing imagining, like you imagine yourself there, and someone I know got to do that. So it's like, what could be cooler than that?
Yeah, and to live vicariously, that's amazing. I had no idea.
And like, I agree with you. I think it's a good movie, and if there are any shortcomings to the movie, it's well cast, it's well performed. I think it's maybe the script could have been punched up a little bit better, but that's on the writing, not the female performers. And it's the improvs were all good. It maybe could have been like, I think the original movie came in half an hour shorter, and there's something to like that brevity when you're doing a comedy to move from beat to beat a little bit faster. And I think that's sort of a thing that I've had with Paul Feig in general, that he can be a little bit slower on the pacing than I think is necessary sometimes. But that's not a gender issue. That's not a that's a pacing issue.
All right, before I toss it back to Todd, John is back. John,
yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Can you hear me?
Yeah. And so I think the movie actually kind of got retitled, like either midway or after it was released. They now call it Answer the Call, right? Is that right, Todd?
It always had that title, and I think, but Paul Feig says on the commentary that he was never aware of that. That was something that was added at the last minute, and that he thought that they wanted to use that so that it wouldn't be considered Ghostbusters 2016.
Gotcha. So, John, do you have any thoughts on Ghostbusters Answer the Call?
Well, actually, I haven't. So, and I missed out on the miss. Well, I have seen yours.
Okay.
Anyway, I think that ship sailed, so we'll go on.
Okay, Todd, anything to wrap up with Ghostbusters? I think those of us that have seen it agree it's way better than the reputation it got, and while the internet is undefeated, the internet is wrong here.
Yeah. Well, plus, I think Chris Hemsworth steals every scene he's in.
100%.
As a completely dim-witted moron.
Yeah. I didn't see that one coming. All right, so let's see. Who wants to go next? Josh, have you done two?
Should I try my first one?
Oh, yeah, we didn't do your actual first one. Let's try that again.
Let's get John in.
Yeah.
You can do number two for me after that.
Okay, jump in, John.
Let's hope my internet keeps functioning here. Okay, so my first one, it's a 2016 movie called A Monster Calls, and it's a literary adaptation. It's about a preteen, tweenish sort of 12, 13-year-old boy who's just kind of having cope with more adult things than he probably should have to. And so there's a strong fantasy element to it. So you might think like a much less heavy, morbid sort of Pan's Labyrinth, where this child kind of escapes into fantasy to help him cope with what's going on. It's not a big name cast. It does have Sigourney Weaver.
John, we're losing you again.
All right. All right.
While we try to see if that settles, Todd or Josh, have either of you seen this? I know I've seen the trailer.
I have not seen it.
I'm sorry, I missed that one as well. And it's, as when John sent me his list of movies that he wanted to do, it was sort of the list of, oh man, those are the ones that I keep meaning to get around to. Just the fact that he's talking about it makes it something automatically that I want to go and see. It's just I can never promise these days when it's going to happen.
You know what it's making me think of is that female lead with like the mental institution kind of thing. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Where they have the big fight scenes and stuff like that. No, I'm on my own here. I'll figure out the name of it.
Actually, now I think about it, I think I have seen it, but I don't remember it that well.
All right. While I look that up, John, you want to try to give us your elevator pitch on what you specifically like about it and would recommend to people?
Sucker Punch, is that what you're talking about?
That's the one. Yeah. Is there any string between the two of them?
No. This, if I was to compare it to something, it really went a lot more like I said, like Pan's Labyrinth, but it's not. The challenges are a very personal thing. It's not like the world falling apart like it is in Pan's Labyrinth.
Any similarity to like Where the Wild Things Are in that kind of mental situation?
I think especially visually, yeah. Actually, it probably owes a lot to Where the Wild.
Unfortunately, we're losing you again, John.
All right.
Can you try calling in on a phone or something?
Yeah, I need a number.
Well, if you put Skype on your phone, just do. I'm gonna pause the show.
I'll be here. You'll see me.
Okay, great. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like Mr. John Rice is having internet difficulties, and as I said, the internet is undefeated and continues that streak tonight. And I do apologize to John we're gonna push ahead without him. And it's a real bummer because it was his concept, and I know he's got some good ideas here. But with that, Josh, you want to tell us your second movie?
Sure. I have picking Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, starring Jim Stewart from 1947, 46, 47, something like that.
Okay.
Have either of you seen?
Yeah, I for sure have, and I have seen like all of those the big market Hitchcock ones. I haven't seen all of his lesser things as he was up and coming, but I've definitely seen Rope and Rear Window and North by Northwest and a bunch of other Hitchcocks. How about you, Todd?
I saw Rope probably when I was late teens.
Yeah, I'm going to say early
a long
teens.
time ago.
Yeah, early teens for me. So 13, 14, 15, video store, VHS. I don't remember much about
Cable
it.
for me.
Okay. So what do you like about it, Josh?
I like, it's an interesting sort of film in that Hitchcock has dismissed it after it came out as being gimmicky because he had this idea. It was based on a stage play. So his idea was to try to shoot it not in one take because the cameras at the time couldn't hold 90 minutes worth of film, but they could shoot in about 10-minute increments without having to stop. The Technicolor camera at that time was basically like the size of a freaking couch on wheels. So, I mean, just moving it around, going from place to place, and actually having an inventive thing for the camera to do, because it doesn't look like it's just somebody stuck a camcorder in the back row of the play. It sort of makes you part of it, and that it's a dialogue film that actually plays out in real time. And I think we've seen that sort of thing become popular more recently. I mean, like 24, for instance, was such a huge hit for a long time. And other movies now, I think the digital cameras make that sort of shooting much more easier. So it's become a gimmick that's been used more frequently. But I don't actually find this to be gimmicky. And Jimmy Stewart said that he felt he was miscast in his role. And I don't find that to be the case either. I think it's a really interesting morality play of sort of what happens. Two people have done something they shouldn't have done, and then think that their intellectual prowess gives them the right to, the idea that there are people that are better than other people, that have an actual right to trample upon other, that there's some, and I think everyone to some minor degree, and who hasn't had that thought of, oh, I'm better than this person, or, oh, I get to do, even though this isn't the rules, it's okay when I do it sort of thing. I mean, I think we all, to some at least tiny degree, have done that in our lives. And this movie takes that to an extreme, but in a way that's, I don't want to say seductive, but in a way that just sort of, you enjoy what's happening at the same time you're repulsed by it, and it's sort of, you can't look away.
Well,
so it ends up being an indictment of the characters as much as it does of you, the viewer.
Well, we've certainly seen that writ large, where we've got things like billionaires who just, trample on anything because they're going to do it the way they want to do it. And we've seen it in politics all over like that. I like what you're saying about the the one take thing, because it really does make a more intimate viewing thing. And I've certainly seen my share of plays on the stage, and both from small productions, high school, even been to Broadway a few times. And there's nothing like it, right? It's again, it's that kind of bottle thing. It's, you're holding everything here, and it's going to go right or it's going to go completely off the rails. And there's nothing you can do, you can do to fix that. You're stuck with the choices you've made, and the characters that you've got, and you've got to tell that story. And the story's the thing. And even if Jimmy's, miscast, the story's the thing, What'd you think?
Yeah, and I think he's actually not. I think I think it was almost, he's so good in it that he might not even know some of the things that he's doing in that as an actor, that sort of his instinct carries him. And I don't think he can be right for the role and not understand why he was right for the role, and both things be true at the same time.
No, I definitely agree. And I have favorite actors and actresses, and love the mannerisms that that they take for granted. But those little tweaks, the things that are almost too natural for them to be cognizant of, that's what makes them endearing to me. Okay, what'd you think of Rope? Do you remember anything about it?
Well, I was really young when I saw it, so I mean, from a technical standpoint, for the time that it was made, I think it's an interesting concept. The most recent one that comes to mind that was kind of done the same way was 1917.
Oh yeah.
By Sam Mendes.
Yeah.
I still have to see that.
Oh no, you haven't seen 1917? Let's go back to our first segment. Oh man. Okay.
I don't really rank it as one of Hitchcock's better films.
Okay.
It's not North by Northwest. It's not, it doesn't have the suspense of North by Northwest I think is my Hitchcock film.
Not Psycho.
It doesn't have the tension or the humor of North by Northwest or Rear Window.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still a technical marvel, I think.
Yeah. The other done in real time thing is the Jason Statham thing with the guy that's going to die if he doesn't.
Crank.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. This is a little better than Crank.
The sequel was even worse.
Yeah.
I showed Rope to my wife, and then she said, okay, as long as we're watching movies in real time, you should see this movie called Crank. So that was actually a real trade that happened. And I'll tell you what, I loved it for all of its ridiculous, over-the-top excess. I was perfectly entertained. My enjoyment of it was pure for 90 minutes.
But it's not highbrow by any sense of the term. Yeah. John, are you there? Did you have any thoughts on this one?
It depends on if you can hear me.
Yep, you're good. You're good. Let's try it.
Well, of course, I haven't seen Rope, so
okay.
I can't really say much about it.
Okay. Have you seen Crank?
Yes. Crank is a blast.
Good. I'm glad I'm not alone.
It's a total blast. I've got it on Blu-ray.
Okay. All right. Well, John, while we've got you here, you want to try again?
Let's try movie number 2.
Okay.
Let's hope it holds in. Well, I've talked about how I like adaptations of Nicholas Sparks novels. Another thing I like is young adult novels.
Who would have guessed?
Sorry?
Who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed? So this is an adaptation of a novel by John Green, Paper Towns. And it's about this guy, this kind of lovable geek who's chasing after this girl. He's been played by Cara Delevingne, who he's been in love with his whole life. And it's interesting because I don't want to bust on the guy who reviewed it on Home Theater Forum, but I loved his line that it doesn't hold much value for anybody of drinking age. And I can say without a doubt that I probably get 10 times as much out of this movie at the ripe young age of 59 than I would have when I was in high school, where it's set. And to me, a big thing is just different people play different roles in their life. And it's not always, a lot of times it's not the role you think they will play or you want them to play. And I love this movie. What can I say?
Well, that's high endorsement.
Yeah, I love it, and I don't care that it's flawed. It's not finely crafted, but it's just a very heartwarming story. And there's this sequence, probably 15-minute sequence late in the movie. It's one of those movies where you're going through almost the whole movie, and you think it's about this. And then right as it's coming kind of into the last 15 or 20 minutes, you find out that, no, it's about this other thing.
Well, that's crazy. I will note that not only have I not seen this, but I've never heard of it before. How about you, Todd or Josh?
It's based on
for me. Oh,
it's
sorry,
based
Josh.
on the John Green novel, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know of it. The Fault in Our Stars. I read that book and then saw the movie, but I never got to Paper Towns. But I'm familiar with sort of the vibe that he goes for, and I think like The Fault in Our Stars was remarkably moving. And I'm nothing like anyone that's in that book, but it just goes to show that there's something universal in the specific, which seems contradictory, but it's if you can paint a feeling and describe it accurately, I think it can be empathized with, and I think it can move someone.
Well, and probably part of it is that there is a sequence late in the movie that it's kind of surprisingly, it didn't occur to me until the last time I watched it that it parallels kind of a day in my life. And it never occurred to me that might be, I'll just say it takes place in a tiny little town in the middle of nowhere. And so maybe that's part of it, but I don't think that's a big part of it. Again, for me, it was learning, accepting the role people have in our life, rather the role they're supposed to have rather than the role we want them to have. And I think that's really the main theme of this movie.
Cool. Todd, have
beautiful
you seen
thing.
it?
It's wonderful. And this probably 15-minute scene towards the end, it's really one of my favorite kind of segment in any movie I've seen. I sometimes I just pop the disc in and watch like that 15 minutes. And if you see the movie, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. Todd, have you seen it?
No, I have not.
Okay. So, John, let me ask you this. Was this movie before or after Fault in Our Stars? And is that how you found it, or did you know this author?
This came out after A Fault in Our Stars, and I like it a lot more than A Fault in Our Stars. I find it doesn't. This is more cathartic and less just like ripping at the heartstrings,
Okay.
which you have to admit, The Fault in Our Stars does that.
Sure. I've only seen the trailer of that, but I know it was a more well-known movie than.
Oh yeah, it definitely was more popular. And I think the first time I'm not sure how I came across this, probably because I do like adaptations of young adult novels and not just the dystopian. I mean, I love the Hunger Games. I like Divergent. I like these, but I also like the more meaning of life ones. And I think something that's valuable about that, people tend to just kind of shrug them off. Oh, it's about teenagers, but it's about a time in your life when you think you can do anything and you plan to do anything and everything. And, there's nothing but hopefulness and, ambition. And, sometimes, well, with most people, things don't quite go that way. And so it's kind of nice to revisit.
Is there kind of a thing where, life knocks you off your horse from what you thought it was going to be, or is it more subtle than that? Oh, no, we lost him again. Bummer.
Yeah, but he's got me Googling the movie and thinking, when can I fit this in? So, he sold it.
Oh,
He did his
100%.
job.
I'm gonna watch all of these. So, well, we will come back to that question.
I really loved what he was saying there about catharsis, because I think that's like one of the most, in a way, that's what I go to art and movies for, and it's like one of the hardest to actually nail. So anything that can actually do that really well is something I'm interested in.
Yep, for sure. Okay, so we will go with the lighter of my other two. Inside Man with Denzel Washington, Clive Owen, and Jodie Foster. You guys both seen this one?
Oh,
Yeah.
I so yeah, I remember where I was when I.
And what was that?
Oh, I mean, it was just a local theater, but it was just like in that time, you know, you have those years in your life where it's just you remember everything, and it seems that, I don't know, that sort of like that period in your like like late 20s where it's sort of like it's all locked and you remember where you were and things still seemed important in a way that maybe you can't recapture when you
Sure.
get out of that. But yeah, I remember going to the theater and seeing that and having a blast.
Yeah, I think a blast is a great word for it.
I just realized what I did there.
Have you seen it, Todd?
Oh yeah, I saw it and saw it in a theater and with my wife, who was surprised that she actually enjoyed a movie directed by Spike Lee.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I want to talk about. But what else did you like about it?
Well, she wanted to see it because she loves Clive Owen.
Oh, who doesn't?
Yeah, and who should have been the next Bond, but
Hadn't thought about him.
all the movies he did for BMW, the short films.
I
Would
don't
have
think
made
I've
him a
seen
good
them.
candidate. The Hire, you can get them. You can watch those on YouTube. But yeah, no, it had me guessing as what was going on throughout the whole movie. I thought it was just well crafted and lots of twists, and not really sure where it was going.
Yeah, I think it's got one of the best sets of misdirections of any film. I love that, and I love. I mean, I like cerebral movies, but I like things that keep me on my toes for sure. I'll tell you the first two things. I went into it, had no idea it was a Spike Lee movie. I love Spike Lee. I love, I've seen most of his things. It just arrived on scene without me having seen a trailer, did any previews. Credits roll up and it's like a bombastic Indian song. I think it's Chaya Chaya, if I remember right. I'd have to look that up. But what a great absolute opening thing that has absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the movie. You're like, why is Spike Lee using like a Bollywood opening here that features the city itself as a character? And I thought that was amazing. Clive Owen is up front with you, telling you what he's going to do through the movie. He's being a narrator. And even with that, you're still surprised at what happens. Jodie Foster, I thought that was... I mean, I don't follow her career, but I really felt like she became an adult... not an adult star, but an adult actor in that movie. That somebody who had gravitas and somebody who had seen shit go down previously. And I thought everybody involved with it on both sides of the conflict, inside and out, were terrific. And that's all I got to say about it. I don't know if either of you guys want to add anything else.
I think the term you were looking for was matured as an actress.
Yeah, for sure, right? And just exudes self-confidence, right? And obviously that's her character. But I think as an actress, she really understood that character. She had been through so much on her personal level and had done 40 years worth of movies. Little Man Tate and stuff like that, where she, had a tremendous acclaim. But I don't think any of them fit her as well as this one.
I when I think of Inside Man, I want to talk about like you with Spike Lee.
Yeah.
And like, I love Spike Lee as a filmmaker. He usually has a very kind of specific aesthetic and specific type of movie that he makes.
Yep.
He tends to make a lot of message movies where he's not necessarily subtle in the message that he's trying to convey, nor should he be required to.
Yep.
But, it's like when you Spike Lee movie, there's no mystery about your watching. So I always find it really interesting when you see a filmmaker like Spike Lee doing a film that didn't have to be a Spike Lee movie, and seeing him use all of his gifts and all of his skills in a way that we're not seeing him do that. To see him make something that's, first and foremost a piece of entertainment, and doing it with gusto.
Yeah.
And then because he's so good at that, then he can start to slip in ideas that a film like that normally wouldn't carry.
Yeah.
And you don't even notice he's doing it half the time.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's really interesting to see these filmmakers. I mean, imagine if someone to opposite end of the spectrum, but imagine if Wes Anderson made a movie that you didn't immediately go, that's a Wes Anderson.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. To a limited extent, that's how I felt about Kevin Smith making Cop Out, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get what you're saying there. Todd, anything else to add?
Not really, although I think it's Spike Lee's most accessible movie for a general audience.
Yeah. I mean, I think of it as Spike Lee doing a studio movie rather than the studio rather than Spike Lee applying a studio aesthetic to, the typical Spike Lee joint, as he calls them, Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, and hopefully you can hear me.
Yep, you're good.
I saw it years ago. I can't really say that I remember it. I just point out, when it comes to Spike Lee, I'm a huge fan of 25th Hour.
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
Give it a shot.
You're gonna love that, man.
Oh, maybe I have. Who's in that? Yeah,
Edward Norton. Yeah.
It
Brian Cox, Rosario Dawson, Barry Pepper. That's kind of Philip Seymour Hoffman and Anna Paquin. That's kind of the main cast.
All right, added it, and we'll put the trailer in the show notes. John, we got you back. We had a question for you.
Okay.
Does anybody remember the question?
I'm listening the whole while. It's just sometimes my upload speed just stops, so I can still hear you. You just can't hear me.
Yeah. Oh boy, we may have to put it in the show notes for you to answer.
Okay.
Because I had it on the tip of my tongue, and I thought it was a good question, and now I don't remember what it was.
Can I jump back to The Mist just for a second?
Yeah.
Because I watched that, I don't know, last week, hadn't seen it in quite a few years, and I did not remember how just unbelievably hardcore that movie is.
Oh yeah, and it doesn't lead you to believe that that's the path that they're going to go down until it does.
No, and it's very Lord of the Flies, and if you're familiar with Lord of the Flies,
yes, yeah.
And this last time I watched it, what I came away thinking was, what Stephen King's saying is here, no matter what just raging pile of shit comes down to destroy us, ultimately the biggest threat to the human race is probably going to be the human race.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, he gets a lot from Lovecraft, right? And so we obviously can't talk too much about religion here, but I think The Mist very wears its anti-religion on its sleeve. But also from Lovecraft, it gets, the whole universe is uncaring and doesn't give a damn whether we or, the human race or any individual lives or dies in.
Right, just kind of that whole surreal, hellish kind of, this could be out, what if this was out there?
Right, nihilism, right?
I guess so.
Yeah. John, you want to try to pick up one of your movies while you're back?
All right, let's hope this goes. So my next one is, actually this one is also written by Alex Garland. It's called Never Let Me Go. And it's from, 2010. And I understand, I've a common comment that people have said, that was an excellent movie. I never want to see it again. And I think there's a line early in the movie that says, but who would make up stories as horrible as that? And I understand this is one of those movies that the less you know going in fact, it's best if you know nothing other than it's a very hard sci-fi alternate reality, but it's a type of science fiction where you don't see technology, see the result of it. And it is an alternate reality because it starts in the 70s and then probably, ends around 2000. But in all it says and I think all that people should know is at the beginning, it says that at some point in the 50s, there's a technical advancement that allows people to live 100 years. And then we start learning what this advancement is, the people who benefit, the people who pay, and it's a beautiful movie, but it is a very, very hard movie. Maybe a little bit like The Mist, or a lot like your last movie. So, which I can't go into yet, but the things people will do to others for their own benefit.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. So
Oh,
I'm
good.
trying to think of the movie that I reviewed that I thought was amazing, but I never want to see it again. So I'm gonna pass it over to Todd and then to Josh to see if they've seen this, and because I have not. If you had any thoughts on it.
I have not seen it.
Okay, how about you, Josh?
I had it. This one was out during that recession I got caught up in, so I ended up seeing a lot of movies that I wouldn't necessarily have thought I'd get a ticket to, just because I had to be near where a job interview was going to happen. So it was sort of being on call to do sort of thing. So I ended up seeing a lot of matinees, and I saw this one. I didn't realize it that Alex Garland was involved in when I bought the ticket. I don't remember liking it as much as John did. I think I liked the ideas that it was playing with and sort of the world that it was building, and just maybe the way that it came about it, or the angle that they told the story from, wasn't necessarily the most effective way to explore those ideas for me to receive those ideas. I think it was a well-made film that just was sort of didn't play to what I want to see or what I expect to see when I go to see a sort of thought-provoking science fiction film. So I think what I was looking for was out of alignment with what it was, but that's more about me than it is about the film.
Well, hopefully I don't die out again here, but it has a spectacular cast. It's directed by Mark Romanek, who's mostly known for directing music videos. He did a pretty disturbing movie with Robin Williams called 1 Hour Photo.
Right, his visuals are just uncanny.
But it stars Carey Mulligan, Andrew Garfield, Keira Knightley, and I swear I will watch anything with Carey Mulligan in it. I understand that people don't get it, or it's not showing the things I want to see. It's not showing the part of the story I want to see, but this is what the story is. And I will just say this movie, to me, this is like the definition of what movies are about. That just, it blows my mind, this movie. And it's too bad that not that many people seem to agree with that.
No, see, I feel almost, because my reaction was what it was, that I want to see it again, because a lot of movies consider to be my favorite movies. A lot of music that I consider favorite music is stuff that actually grabbed me in that way the first time, that I had to fight for, or that it had to make an argument that it won. So it feels like this is a movie that if I had the time to give it another shot, that I might have a different reaction the second time around. But I agree with you; it's gutting. It's a brutal movie thematically to kind of come out at the end.
Right. And if I was to compare it to a movie, I would say people who like Denis Villeneuve's movie Arrival, which I also just absolutely love, maybe they'll like this quite a bit.
Well, I loved Arrival, so that sounds incredible to me. But what I was going to say about this, and the movie that I loved that I'd never want to see again, is Requiem for a Dream, and I always get it confused with What Dreams May Come,
which is also awesome in my book.
Yeah. But here's my question. I think that a movie that is shocking can be beloved. The example I would use there is The Sixth Sense. But can a depressing movie be beloved? And I guess the only example I can think of there might be something like Mommy Dearest.
Well, and I've seen Mommy Dearest, and it, I think of, we say Mommy Dearest, the first movie that popped into my mind is Whiplash from, I don't know what, 5 years ago,
Yeah.
of just, a completely psychopathic, abusive person who just shatters everyone that gets into their orbit.
Yeah, and again, I bring it back to like the billionaire mindset, that driven mindset that, it's my way, or, I will take you down if I have to, if I get in my way.
Right.
And so,
right.
yeah, I like that example. That's terrific.
So this is more, like I would say the theme on this is maybe a little bit, well, I won't get ahead of it. Like I said, it just, after I recommended this to someone, and her response was, if this really happened, there would be rioting in the streets. And my answer was kind of like, oh, really? Is this any worse than what, humanity has already done repeatedly to its other members?
And is doing today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else to add on that? Or Josh, did you have any final thoughts since you saw it?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with John. I hate to be the cynical one, though. No, I guess I probably don't act. It would be disingenuous for me to say that I hate being the cynical one. Sometimes I enjoy it. But I agree. There would not necessarily be riots in the street, and it's difficult to sort of get into why without discussing the thing of it. But the thing of it is, it sort of happens in a non-science fiction way today, that anything is available for sale if you're in a position to pay for it, and things have to come from somewhere. So,
well, that's very mysterious.
That's sort of the, and it's like, I want to think like, Sam, if you decide this is too far, can you cut this out, or should I just keep my mouth shut?
Oh no, let's go with it.
I was just going to say, like, people like, Steve Jobs needed a new liver, and he got one,
right? Because he had the resources to make it happen.
But what does that mean? I had the resources to make that happen. You're talking about something that can only grow in another human being, that another human being can't live without. So what does that actually mean? So when we say things like, the public wouldn't stand for this if it wouldn't happen, if this movie happened, it really depends on who it's happening to and who is benefiting from, determine what the reaction was going to be. So I'm with John.
You tell me if I need to cut this out. Are we talking like a Gattaca situation?
There's philosophically, I mean, not literally, but yeah, philosophically, there's kind of a similarity. It's just worse.
Okay. Well, now
the consequences of it are really
okay. So we're not cutting anything, because I'm super intrigued at that answer. So apologies to if anybody hoofs at that.
I feel like I knew that going into the movie from the trailer that I might have seen, so I don't think I'm killing it for anyone.
So my main recommendation is, anybody wants to watch it, don't read anything about it. There's something you're not supposed to know what's going on, and you find out, it doesn't take long. You find out about 20 minutes in, and it's just one of those things that you can't go back. Give yourself that discovery of, oh, that's what this is.
Okay, so I'm going to insert this maybe 3 minutes earlier. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. I don't think we spoiled anything, because I haven't seen it, but hopefully nobody takes it too seriously. John, you've definitely got my my interest raised. So, congratulations on that. So I think that's everybody with 2. Is that right?
Actually, I guess I've done 3, so I think we better take our luck, while we have it. You guys can finish your last one.
All right. Why don't you jump back in, Josh, and tell us your third one?
My third one, Tomorrowland, which Brad Bird directed for Disney, and it came out in 2000. And I don't think it's a perfect movie, and I think they absolutely bungled the marketing on it completely, which made it be something that people didn't go out to see, because essentially the marketing was, we're making a really cool movie that's such a secret that we can't tell you anything about it, but you should come and buy a ticket, which that didn't really work too well for him. And it was almost they were being so secretive about what it was about that in the way that the movie's kind of structured, they bury the lead. And it's really a movie about optimism and the need to not give in to despair. And I think that there's something really interesting, a point that's made in the film that, are we as a culture right now what we are, because so much of what we consume as a culture is about apocalypses and about doom and about that this is falling apart, this is bad, this is the end of the world, even when it's in a light entertaining context like the Avengers movies. It's still always something really bad is about to happen. We need to be saved, things are terrible. And so sort of the core thesis of the film ends up being have we put ourselves in a feedback loop where we expect the world to end, and that expectation of it is what brings it on. And conversely, if believing that the worst is going to happen brings that upon, if we expect something better from ourselves and from others, if we can embrace optimism and be if we be unafraid of having our feelings hurt and being vulnerable in that way, to be open to expecting something more, is it possible that there might be? And so I think it's a film that isn't perfectly executed, but it has an idea so compelling that it makes the clumsiness of some of it irrelevant to the uplift that it carries.
I really like it. I enjoy that movie.
Okay. Have you seen it, Todd?
Yes, I have. When it finally arrived on Disney Plus, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I think I agree with Josh. The marketing was horrible on that movie. I think people thought it was a movie, another Disney movie about not necessarily a ride, but an entire land at a theme park.
Gotcha.
I'm sorry about my phone in the background.
No worries. So that's 3 people who've seen it and like it. John, while we still have you live, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you liked it and what you agree with Josh on?
It just, well, I think like Josh said, it's sort of optimistic. It's sort of silly, what to say, almost apple pie innocent, in its optimism. And the combination of George Clooney and Britt Robertson, she's got to be about, you may not know her, she's not in a lot of really big stuff, but she's got to be about the most bubbly present scene in a movie. And it's a nice little break from, the hard world.
Gotcha. Anything else you can add to that, Todd?
Sorry, I had to step away there, and so but I like the cast.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, let me ask you this, and I'll point this at Josh, and you guys can throw in any. I seem to recall, I haven't seen it, but I seem to recall this being used as like an early Atmos demo. And the one thing that I remember about it is that it's got kind of like this, it's the meme of like the chosen youngster will lead us out of, our despair. And I seem to recall almost like an electric laser shootout that kind of kicks off the things. Am I remembering the right movie?
I think there's something with some shootout. I think like that there's one person that can save us. It's not that specific, but maybe the marketing kind of put it in that way, because I think ultimately the kind of thing about the movie is that it's meant to be empowering to everyone, that we all matter in a way, that either none of this matters or it all matters. Don't you want to be in the world, don't you want to live the life where it all matters? So it's sort of like, I don't think he knew how to market it. So it went from It's a Secret to, one of those, one person will find the way. And it's really neither of those things. But yeah, I think there's some being shot at in a toy store with Keegan-Michael Key and probably some good Atmos there.
Oh, that's all you had to say was Keegan-Michael Key. I'm in, and if it's on Disney Plus, I'm gonna have to pull that.
Sure, and Clooney gets to do a grumpy performance, and I love grumpy Clooney. So,
oh yeah, concur. Grumpy Clooney is always a great one. I'm trying to think of
Hugh Laurie too. Hugh Laurie gets to be in there very grumpy. So
well,
I mean, what's better than Dr. House doing House?
Yeah, I mean Hugh Laurie's always grumpy. All right, anything else to add on it, Josh?
Oh, I mean, I think it, it's not a perfect movie, but again, if we lose sight, it's another one of those things that it's like you can shut yourself off from missing so many good movies if you aspire to perfection. And I think sometimes,
Sure.
I know I fall into that trap in this hobbyist, that it's like you want to watch the best of everything, and sometimes you lose sight of like just watch a movie, any movie, and find something to like about it. And this one I ended up just kind of seeing on a kind of nothing day, and I just walked out of the theater feeling better than when I walked in, and sometimes that's enough.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, escapism is real, man. I'm all for escape. Todd, what's your final pick here?
So my final film, and I've talked about this before on the show, is 1991's Grand Canyon, directed by Lawrence Kasdan, written by Lawrence Kasdan and his wife Meg Kasdan, starring Kevin Kline, Danny Glover, Steve Martin, Mary Louise Parker, Alfre Woodard, Mary McDonald. Yeah. Anyway, it's an ensemble piece. It's about healing, and I watched a little bit of it today to kind of remind me about it. So basically, Kevin Kline plays a lawyer, and he is at a Lakers game with film producer Steve Martin. When he leaves the Forum in Los Angeles, in Inglewood, he takes a wrong turn and his Lexus breaks down. I think his alternator goes out, which just happened to me during trying to drive through some treacherous roads here in rural Nevada. So that's scary in and of itself. But his car breaks down in a very bad neighborhood of Los Angeles, and some gang members are trying to rob him when the tow truck driver Danny Glover arrives and saves the day. And it kind of goes on from there. He's basically trying. So there's just a bunch of intertwined stories that go on. Steve Martin gets shot by a mugger. And it sounds horrible, but it's really a movie, like I said, about healing. And I think it came out probably 2 to 3 years too early, because there's a lot of stuff that happens in the movie that echoes what happened in L.A. during the Rodney King riots. And I think it kind of got a bum rap. The marketing was horrible. Fox tried to market it as, the 90s version of The Big Chill, which it wasn't. It was just another ensemble piece by Lawrence Kasdan, who's really good at ensemble pieces. And I think it also got overshadowed by Robert Altman's ensemble piece, Shortcuts, which came out that same year. So it only got one Oscar nomination for screenplay and lost to Thelma and Louise.
All right. I mean, if you're gonna lose, you might as well lose big. I remember this trailer, and I also remember that you talking about this film on the pod before, Todd, and I did go and buy it on some service and still haven't watched it. So I need an ass kick. John, have you seen this?
Sorry, it took me a second. I saw this when it came out, and I can say that I don't think I was at age yet where I could really appreciate it. So I probably need to revisit it.
How about you, Josh?
If I did see it, it's the same thing that I just don't really have a recall of it. I think I've seen. I mean, when Lawrence Kasdan's name is on a movie, it's usually something I want to go and see. So I'm surprised that I'm blanking on it. But I used to work at a video store, and I've seen the VHS cover of it 1,000 times. So it may be more familiar to me than I think it is. But I think in general, you can't go wrong with a Lawrence Kasdan film.
So, Todd, the movie that I was thinking of when you were describing this is called Judgment Night with Dennis Leary. Is it anything at all like that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
And it's got a very this movie has a very uplifting ending. It's got a great score by James Newton Howard. It's just a movie that got a bad rap, I think. Just poor marketing and just overshadowed by another.
Gotcha. Okay. Well,
it's also a film that's very hard to find.
Is it not online? I swear I bought it.
It's not available digitally. I have not been able to buy it digitally. It was released on Blu-ray. It was licensed out to Anchor Bay, who released it on Blu-ray, and they only did one manufacturing run of it. You can find it on DVD, but it's a really bad transfer. I was really hoping when Disney had that licensing deal with Kino that this would be one of the films that they would release, but they didn't. It desperately needs a new transfer. It needs to be released on Blu-ray, if not 4K, and needs to be released on digital. So hopefully with their acquisition of Hulu, the 100% acquisition of Hulu, which Disney did make the down payment Friday, the initial down payment to Comcast on that. So hopefully they'll beef up their movies, something like this.
Well, now I'm curious which of your movies you recommended that I went out and bought, because it was I'm pretty sure it was in the same episode where John had recommended a couple that I went out and bought. John, what's the one with the by the pool side or something like that you recommend?
Oh, swimming pool.
Swimming pool, yeah. So
Yeah,
I went out
yeah.
and bought like a half dozen different movies after doing that pod. Now I'm gonna have to figure out what else you recommended, Todd, that I'm confusing it with. So apologies.
Yeah, I mentioned this before on the Stranded on an Island show.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay, cool. Anybody else have anything to add on this one? Okay, I'm gonna take us home with my final pick, which is Antebellum. Have you seen this one, John?
I had seen it once, and I had bought it, and I watched it last week. Really, sorry to get tongue-tied on it, but very ambitious, purpose-driven, and almost incendiary movie. And the big, again, it's something you can't really talk about.
Sure.
You know.
I mean, let's just say, spoiler alert, that there is a big twist.
Yeah, it would be, you might say it's kind of but has kind of a Shyamalan element to it.
Sure. Yeah.
And the one thing that struck me the second time, I'm not sure so much the first time, was the guts of Jack Houston and Jenna Malone, because they are the most despicable characters you'll probably ever see in a movie in your lifetime. And I'm constantly impressed, especially with Jenna Malone, with the roles she takes. And man, she is all in.
Yep. Yeah, and the villains, such as they are fully committed to it, and I respect that. What is the Hitler movie that everybody makes the meme out of? That guy just fully committed to.
Not the Charlie Chaplin.
No.
Not the Great Dictator.
No. Now it's going to.
You're talking about Riefenstahl?
No.
Okay.
Hang on. I'll figure it out. Hang on. Downfall. The guy that plays Hitler in Downfall is fully committed to that and all in on, all of his mannerisms as well as his actions. And I thought that the villains in Antebellum lived up to that kind of despicability, and it's got to be hard to do.
They definitely come off as like true believers.
Yes. Yeah. Josh, have you seen this one?
Yeah, I actually rented it a couple weeks ago when we first started talking about doing this, and I thought, I'm gonna have time to get through everybody's thing on everybody's one, and I got through exactly one, and it was yours.
Oh, okay. What'd you think?
I'm going to say again, with similar caveat to Never Let Me Go, that it was sort of, this is probably more upon me as the viewer than the film itself, but I don't think I was in the right mood to be watching the movie when I did. So it was sort of more of a chore to watch than it should have been. And I think that's 100% on me and not that, because it's sort of like when you watch enough movies, you sort of recognize when something's doing something well and you're just not receiving it right, as opposed to them not having done it well. And I think it's sort of, it ticks all the boxes for inventive storytelling and sort of, so I really liked what it was doing more than I enjoyed the experience of watching that. But then again, how many people, let's say, oh, I really had fun watching Schindler's List, like it's just.
Sure. 12 Years a Slave, the same kind of vein.
It's not that kind of, on one hand, but on the other hand, movies that have twists and that you're kind of get the sense of, oh, maybe something isn't right here and I want to try to figure it out. That is a fun element of watching movies. So it's sort of a jarring to watch something where something awful is happening and you're trying to figure out, like, is there some sort of a trick to this where it's okay that it's this awful and it can be fun to watch? or should I be horrified and not having any
Yeah.
fun right now?
Yeah, I think
You
that
know, and it, you know, like that tone kind of caught me where it was, but I mean, again, it's the boldness of the filmmakers to dare to put the audience in a position to be unsettled like that.
yeah, I think the term I used was cognitive dissonance, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
100%.
it
That's the movie.
it throws everything on its head and makes you question reality. Todd, have you had a chance to see it?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, we recommend it. Or at least I do. What do you think, John and Josh? Would you recommend somebody watch it? Josh, you said
I didn't know I wasn't in the mood for it, not having known, because it was like I ended up thinking that it was about,
one thing and it went to another.
but it involved both of them. So it wasn't that I was misinformed about the brutality of it, but I thought it had in a different context because I thought it was about a writer, a present day writer who was writing a story that took place in this time. So then we're seeing like the book that she's writing and then flashing back to her writing it. And although there are sort of two different settings and periods, that's not it. So I was sort of for that, and then that did happen.
Well, I will tell you guys that I screened this from multiple groups of family members, and they hated it. They were not on board.
I see, you know, if not a majority, a small majority, a significant minority of people, of Americans, hating this movie with fire.
Yeah, and we're not going to use the W word, right?
I'm not sure what the W word is. So
all right, so perfect.
Yeah.
I think though that, you know, that's the thing is that sometimes we forget that if, you know, if it's a genuine, you know, hatred that it provokes, as opposed to, you know, oh, I'm not liking this because, you know, I've decided that I don't like the filmmakers, even though I haven't seen the film or something. That's one thing. But if you watch an interest something and you absolutely hate it, like that's still a valid response. And for a filmmaker to have provoked that much feeling in you is in some ways a win. Like I have this argument with or conversation with my wife about the work of David Lynch all the time, where she's just like, I just don't like it. It made me feel uncomfortable. And I counter that with, and I mean, that's okay, but that's feeling uncomfortable is part of that art. Like that is specifically made to make you have that feeling, and what you feel about it is as important as what you think about it.
Yeah, it's the person who says, I'm sorry, John, it's the person who says, I hate it because it makes me uncomfortable, and the other guy's like, I love it because it makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
And that's exactly it. The people who hate, a lot of people will hate it because it threatens them.
Yes. So the W word is the woke word, and actually, yeah, I know. We did remove a number of comments from my review of it where that was being thrown around. It's a problem. It's a problem. So that's all I'm gonna say. All right. Anybody else got anything to add on this one? I think we've uncovered some a lot of movies for us to all kind of take a step back and go reevaluate or see again for the first time. So I appreciate that. You guys have, I love talking movies, especially and almost more if I haven't seen it to hear what people are passionate about and what they love. And again, I throw it back to the Films to be Buried with podcast. If you guys don't follow that, it is just a treasure trove of recommendations that you may have seen but didn't, you know, quite grasp what other people love about it, and you know, get recommendations for films you haven't seen. Big thumbs up there.
I will say, you know, my pleasant surprise on this was going back and watching Solo.
Okay. Well, I will review it again too, because I liked it when it came out, and I you know, I understood the controversy even if I didn't agree with it. So good pick, Todd.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to add on the films before we kick it over to GBU?
I guess I gotta put aside a couple days to watch the Godfather saga.
Yes, and I'm gonna recommend that you watch it in the original order and not the recut where they put it in sequential. Although I know a number of people have loved that.
I'd be watching it on Paramount Plus, so they only have the theatrical cuts on there.
Yeah, the actual movies, definitely.
All right, well, that brings us to... You're not going to make me sing, are you? All right, so I'm going to go first because I am so late with this review that I think the the studio had actually excitedly said, make sure you fill us in on when this comes out the day before it hits street date. And I'm over 3 weeks late on that now. So apologies to Sony. But my pick is Gran Turismo, and it's not Gran Turismo, and it's not Tourismo, Gran Turismo. Has anybody seen this yet?
Have not seen it.
Just the trailer.
Okay,
I haven't seen it, but I'll,
have any of you played the video game or any of the video games that it's been?
I have. I have it for PS3.
Okay, John?
I'm not allowed to think more advanced than a Super Nintendo.
How about you, John?
Will it play on my old Pong machine?
It will not play on the Vectrex, I'm sorry, or the Telstar.
Sorry, no video games. Sorry.
Okay, so for those of you who have not seen it, this is a film that stars David Harbour, Orlando Bloom, and Archie Madekwe. I'm pronouncing that right. It's based on a real story where Nissan brought a marketing executive had the great idea to find the best Gran Turismo racing drivers on the PlayStation platform and see if their skills and their reactions could translate to actual driving in real races. And fortunately for them, that did happen. They did win real races. I think even some of them are continuing. I wouldn't say that it's overall changed racing, but it did give people pause and has made a pretty compelling story. All right, so I'm going to kick it over to Todd first. Todd, do you think I thought this was good, bad, or ugly?
I'll go last.
Okay. How about you, Josh?
I'm gonna say it just squeaked by as being
Okay, John?
I guess I'll go with bad.
Okay. Todd, I love it. We've got controversy already.
I'm going to cheat and say you think it's somewhere between good and bad because this was on the last podcast.
Oh, did we talk about Gran Turismo?
On the Black Friday show, yeah.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. So we can tell who's listened to the podcast before, and it wasn't me. Wow. Should I pick another one?
Oops.
No, we're running long. We're running long, Sam. So
okay. So I did think that it was just barely good. So we'll end it there,
Isn't that what I guessed? I said
yes,
I bet it just squeaked by as good.
Barely. You must listen to the podcast.
Don't pick another one. I got it right.
Yes, you get a point, Josh. And Todd, who actually listened to the podcast, either missed it or I've changed my answer. I don't know which.
We were both on the podcast.
Yeah. What did I say then?
That's exactly what you said.
It was somewhere between
because we
good
both
and
had movies that were somewhere between good and bad. And we were like, they're
Well, maybe it's grown on me because I watched the extras in between, Todd. So I'll take a mulligan on this one. All right, Todd, you go ahead with yours, and if you do a repeat, I'll call you out on it.
No, I won't do Equalizer 3 again. So my choice was, my film is The Creator.
Ooh, I saw this in theaters.
From the director of Rogue One, Gareth Edwards.
Yep.
It's where humans are in a war with robots powered by artificial intelligence.
Okay, John, have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I want to because it's very divisive. People kind of love it or hate it.
Okay. Do we want to get your pin first, or see if Josh has seen it before?
I'll go ahead. I'm gonna guess Todd thought it was bad, maybe even ugly, but I'm gonna go with bad.
Okay, Josh, what do you think?
I haven't seen it, but I sort of feel that Gareth Edwards tends to overpromise and underdeliver. So I'm going to say that it kind of like the opposite of yours, that it came in as bad, but not tragic, just like, you should have been better.
All right. I did see this in theaters in IMAX. I'm pretty sure it was IMAX and not Dolby Cinema. It was one of the two for sure. And I came away middling to bad. But having said that, I think Todd saw this in a well-calibrated home theater, and I think if I remember right, he liked things like Steven Spielberg's AI, and I think he's gonna rate it as just barely hitting good. So what do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I think you're right there, Sam. It's a beautiful looking movie. It would have looked really weird in IMAX because it was shot in 2.76 to 1, which
Okay,
is a
so
very odd aspect ratio.
yeah, it must have been Dolby then.
Must have been Dolby Cinema, or some premium format. But the story just never really grabbed me. I was like, and I watched it with my wife. She knew exactly how it was going to end in the first 5 minutes, so it could have been better.
Somewhere between good and bad.
Yeah, leaning more towards bad. It's a wonderful looking film, wonderful sounding film. So if you want something to show off your home theater, the story just wasn't there for me.
I think it falls into the same category as a lot of modern science fiction, in that they think they're more clever than they are. They think they have something interesting to say, but never really get it out there. And the movie I'm thinking most closely on that is Ad Astra.
That's funny because that is my pick.
Yeah, well, you know what my guess is going to be there. I think you're going to think it was bad. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but I mean, we're overflowing with terrific science fiction these days, and when things just don't live up to it, I think they look worse by comparison. So that's where I think we're going. Anybody else have anything to add on the creator, whether they were surprised with Todd's decision?
No, I haven't seen it, but that's what I expect from it, and yet I still I still will see it.
Yep, and I'm going to get a copy for the home too when it hits that $20 range or less. Not at full. All right, who's up next? Want to go with Ad Astra? I say it's bad.
Sure.
Bad.
Yeah, let's do it.
Bad, but you tell us what. Give us the elevator pitch on it.
All right. Brad Pitt stars in this space movie where he's one of the greatest astronauts we have, and he's the son of a legendary astronaut who disappeared on a mission many years ago. And now, like, the Black Ops division of NASA needs him to kind of go and figure out why his dad disappeared and what he's up to, sort of. But it's sort of so apocalypse now in space with a little bit of like that sort of like sunshine aesthetic to it.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's probably the best description I've heard of it.
That was the main. When you said Ad Astra, I thought my impression of Ad Astra and Sunshine are kind of similar. Like maybe a big part of it is that they just do not go where you would ever expect.
Todd, any thoughts on Ad Astra? Have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but I remember everyone confusing it with Ed Asner.
Oh yeah,
came out. But I'm going to say bad.
For the record, Ad Astra is Latin for what, Josh?
To the stars.
To the star. All right. Give
my
us
high school Latin coming into use.
I desperately wanted to take Latin in high school, and my parents made me take French forever. Not doing it.
At least there are places you can go and speak French.
Yeah.
I took Latin because I was a poor foreign language, and so I thought the one that I didn't have to speak might be the one that I could pass.
How'd that work out for you?
I passed.
All right. Well, I got continuous C's in French because I was not in. I think
passing grade, man.
Yeah,
you get to graduate.
C's get degrees. All right, good, bad, or ugly, Josh?
It really depends on my mood. So it's sort of a trick selection. I think it's sort of a bad movie with good intentions that I enjoy despite its failures. That I can't really recommend it, but that I find that speaks to me, that's useful.
Okay,
what it's. I like it for what it's trying to more than what it actually does. So it's probably a bad movie that I enjoy versus a good movie.
Okay, so you've seen it multiple times. Does it get better or worse with multiple viewing?
It's sort of the first time I saw it in theaters, and I was severely underwhelmed. And then I went and watched it on HBO Max, I think, and I was like, "Oh wow, this was awesome! I loved it." So then I went and bought the disc because I was like, I loved it that time. And then I went and watched that, and I was like, oh. So we'll see what happens the next time I watch it.
All right.
It's really more of a vibe story movie. So it's like if you're watching and you like feel the vibe, go with it. And if you're like watching, you're 10 minutes in, and you're like, this is interminable, shut it off because it's not going to get any more to your liking.
I will endorse that take on. All right, John, bring us home. What's your choice?
Okay, my GBU is the Peter Jackson produced, universally adored answer to Waterworld, Mortal Engines.
Okay, I have seen this both in the theater and home, but go ahead and give us the elevator pitch.
Okay, well, it's like Waterworld on land. It's a dystopian kind of Earth has been destroyed world where cities are like enormous vehicles just traversing, the dead soil, stealing from each. And I guess I that's pretty much the synopsis, I guess.
Okay, and to be fair, they stole this idea from Monty Python, right?
I can't remember if there was something like this in Monty Python.
Yeah, it's something the Indemnity Company, Monty Python, where business people are in skyscrapers that fight each other.
Well, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
That's true.
So,
That's true. All right, Todd, have you seen this one?
Yes, I actually reviewed it way back when it came out on Blu-ray.
And what did your review score it?
Good performances, good effects, but it kind of just missed the mark. It's one of those could have been a franchise because there were a series of books that it was based.
Yeah, so go ahead, Josh, and then I'll give my thoughts.
Yeah, I didn't see this one. I saw the trailer to it, and it looked sort of marginally. Maybe it'd be something for me because I tend to be more space science fiction than dystopian Earth science fiction. And then it was just one of those things where that trailer played before everything. And I saw it so many times that I was just like, I've lost interest. So I never actually got around to it.
Okay, so this one ranks up there with Alita, Battle Angel, or something like that. That has a terrific premise, has great audiovisual qualities, but the story just goes nowhere. So I'm going to vote ugly on this one. I don't know if I actually got a good, bad, or ugly from either of you guys. So, Todd, what do you think, good, bad, or ugly?
I'm going to say bad.
Okay, and Josh?
I would also say bad.
All right, so that's two bads and an ugly, John. So if you like this one, you can't be on the show again.
Okay. Well, it's just mind-numbingly absurd.
Yep.
The story. And Hugo Weaving is the most caricaturish, spitting, just paragon of evil, just campy, over the top. And did I mention that it is the most inane idea?
Like I said,
and
they got
I
it from Monty
absolutely freaking love it.
Oh no! Womp womp. Why do you love it, John?
Laugh. I just sit and laugh at this movie.
It
is so outrageous. It just, all I can do is just love it.
Okay. That's what makes Home Theater Forum great, and by association or united, that we can agree that there's something to love in every movie. Todd, Josh, any reaction here?
Well, and I wanted to counter kind of the heaviness of like Never Let Me Go. I wanted to show that I can just freaking roll to the most absurd movie.
Okay. You contain multitudes, John.
Yeehaw.
Todd, Josh, any reaction?
I'm kind of surprised because I thought it was overstuffed with plot.
Oh, I thought it was understuffed with plot.
Okay, well, I thought there was just too much stuff going on for a 2-hour movie.
That's another kind of just the absurdity of it is they try to put gravity into it and like human condition and meaningfulness, and it's just not the right vehicle, pun intended.
Womp womp. What were you saying? What were you saying, Josh? Take us out with it.
I think I was going to say that after I said that I thought it was bad, I said, wait a second, I'm overthinking this. This is John's popcorn move. He's good.
Yep.
He liked it. Like,
yep.
I psyched myself out.
Yep. Me too. I should have seen it coming, but we didn't. Well, you know what that means. This has been probably one of our longest shows in a long time. But I can't thank you guys enough for coming back. I want all of our all the folks who pulled down this to go grab Todd's over on YouTube Todd, are you syndicated anywhere else besides the YouTube?
Not yet. I'm thinking I may branch out to Spotify, because they do video podcasts now as well.
Okay.
Or you can just easily send it to them and they strip the video. I'm not. I have to look into that, but probably just YouTube at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, YouTube has certainly got the biggest reach out there, and it is the one place where we are not found. So, maybe we'll have to figure that out. Podbean's our host. They send it to a bunch of different places simultaneously, but because we don't have any video, we never get out there on those. Wishing you all the best of luck, and I thank you all very much. I want everybody to have a terrific Christmas, Boxing Day, and New Year's. And there is going to be one more show if things go right before the New Year's. So keep your eyes out for that. That'll be the triumphant return of Brian Dobbs, and can't wait to get him back on the show. Any final words from anybody? Oh, Todd, I didn't ask. How'd your Black Friday go?
It went fine. I mean, my sister bought a nice 55-inch LG at Best Buy, so she went from an HD to a 4K. But
nice.
I took advantage of the Chewy offer.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Got 30% off on some cat litter, but no, kind of it's just
Okay.
Didn't do much. Well, no, I take that back. I picked up a year of Peacock for $19.99.
Sweet. And I did take your recommendation and bought one of your recommended LG sets for my folks. Not OLED though.
And it fit and looked good.
Oh, it looks fantastic. It's too big for their room, according to them. And then 2 days later, they said, "Oh, we've gotten used to it. It's fine." Well, thank you. Anybody?
When I was selling TVs, the number one reason for TVs getting returned wasn't that they were too big; it was small.
Too small. I believe it. Anybody have anything else they want to promote or say? Otherwise, we are out of here. John?
It's been fun.
It's great having you guys back. How about you, Josh?
Oh, man, thanks for having me. This was so great.
Awesome to have you back. We will see you all next year. Like I said, we got one more show, and then CES first week in January, and I could not be more excited, except if I was going, which I'm not. Miss one more year, but looking forward to seeing all the fun new reviews from the Flat Panel Mafia. Shout out to FOMO and Brian and all the guys that have been here before, including KG, and look forward to seeing what they think about all the new stuff coming out. So everybody have a great, happy holidays. We'll see you one more time before then, and we'll be back in full force next year. Got a whole bunch of shows lined up, ideas, and I appreciate John kicking off this idea. And Todd, I know you've got ideas for us, but best wishes with your show too.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Talk to you soon. Later.
Good night.